Ladies and gentlemen, our seventh speaker for our next presenter is entitled Learning Immersively, Virtual Reality for and in Education, which will be presented by Mr. Michael Lim, who is the Executive Director for the organization called iMMERSiVELY. Please welcome Mr. Michael Lim.
Hi everyone. Well, I'm very excited to be here, and I will be passing the microphone over to Michael, but I just wanted to say that we have been in content for at least 10 years. Traditional content, making TV shows linked to travel, food, reality. We actually shot 3 seasons in a row of Miss Universe Malaysia, so a lot of women crying, a lot of drama. And after doing so much traditional content, which is still out there on big screens, we said, you know, the world, it's moving digital. You have no choice. You either get onto the bus or you get left behind. So we have been actually analyzing and studying the digital arena for a really long time now, wondering where are we going to place our next efforts. And as luck would have it, I was shooting something for Discovery Channel. We produced it ourselves with tourism bodies, and our partner was MediaCorp Singapore as well. And our client in MediaCorp actually was the person checking every video that we sent to make sure I didn't say the wrong words, that we passed censorship. And he was actually our client because he's been in the industry for 18 years. And all of a sudden, toward the end of our project, he said, that's it, I'm packing my bags and I'm going to give everything up and become a student again. I'm going to London. I was like, why are you going to London? And he said, I want to study VR because it's becoming already so big. And he did this at a point in time when all the big boys were starting from the ground up to study this market because it was so exciting. I mean, you think about it, all the big players, they're already in it. And so he left with all his life savings. He even relocated his wife and his kid to England. And he is now our business partner because we continued on in production. And after doing 1 year of studying, completely being immersed, which is why we're called iMMERSiVELY, right? He totally immersed himself in all things linked to VR. He even studied AR. And you'll have to talk to him, but he prefers VR because it's more of a controlled environment. Because once you place the goggles on, you can go to places that you wouldn't ordinarily ever be able to access. Like if you wanted to do the solar system, you could be the sun. And when you look down, you can see the earth. Because the amazing thing about VR is there is no camera angle. You are the angle. Where you look is the camera angle. So when he came back after 1 year, and he's now one of the only formally trained people, not just in this part of the woods, but the whole of Asia. He's one of the most formally trained specialists in the industry. He said, I actually want to create a startup, and I want to actually get into education because VR is already so huge in travel and tourism. But with education, can you imagine the power of it, being able to extend a lesson? When you're teaching children and you're telling them about space, you can put them in space. It's really, really exciting, and we are learning so much every day because the industry is moving so quickly. You have Jack Ma, who's partnered up with HTC. Obviously, Facebook is already in it. Google has made it more accessible to everyone because of the cardboards. So what we are doing now is we are at the genesis of building VR for the education vertical. And I will pass you over to Michael, who'll tell you a little bit more about us and what we do, and I'll come back to you later, but thank you.
Hey guys, Georgia's a great speaker, so I don't know how to go after her. But yeah, I think Lionel was our partner in Singapore, and he was 41 years old, and what he realized was, being content for 18 years, that the world just moving to digital. So with technology, he armed himself with knowledge to really work out how is VR going to help education. So Lionel is our key person in Singapore, and for myself, I've been in the business for about 20 years, predominantly in content as well. We do a lot of work with Discovery, we do a lot of work with Nat Geo, and a lot of documentaries, and I've just filmed over 9 months in Borneo for Malaysia and Singapore, and this thing's going to be going on Discovery. It's a 10-part series. So I'm very familiar with Kuching and of course in Sarawak. In terms for Jojo, she is a travel host. She's also our key executive creative director for the company. She does all the writing, and she's been on all over the world on Discovery, on TLC. So we're very proud to have her on board in iMMERSiVELY as well. So just a little bit of a background on virtual reality. It's all about being in a place which you can't normally go to. So it's replicating an environment which is real or imagined. So imagine is things like computer graphics, which you see, which is called CG, and it's experienced through a VR headset. So what virtual reality is, and what we're looking at is the future of content. And we're looking to explore spaces, and of course how the viewer can control their perspective. So right now you've got to have platforms, otherwise you're not going to be able to see the virtual reality. So two of the biggest platforms in the world, which is Facebook and YouTube, are currently being able to promote virtual reality. So all you need is a headset. And Google Cardboard is able to produce this a lot cheaper and easier for all of us because it's open source now. So people like in terms of schools, you're probably wondering how we're going to get these headsets. They're easily available for the masses, and a lot of schools can adopt these headsets in, and all you need is your phone, and that's all it is. Very easy. So lots of brands are coming on board now to use these headsets to print it and manipulate it to push it around the world. So in terms of VR, it's the future of social media marketing. And if you look in terms of BMW, Samsung, Nescafe, all of these particular brands are trying to use VR to go forward. So education for EdTech, it's all about training in the various fields, which can be applied in creative sort of ways. And we're looking to promote VR in terms of lessons. So if you look in terms as a tool, VR is able to help teachers educate their students. This is one of my favorite case studies. Google for Education around the world has a sort of a pitch line, which I love. VR is taking children to places where the school bus cannot go. So ideally, if you look in terms as a teacher, if you're in a classroom, can you show that kid, for example, Great Wall of China? Can you bring that child and experience World War I? Can you bring that kid into the human body to see the heart, for example? So I'm going to share with you a quick video, and hopefully it works, Casey. Let's see if this works. Let's have a look.
You could pick anywhere in the world that you want to go. Where would you want to go?
I would like to go to the moon.
Thailand, Asian Greece, India, to Nigeria, my homeland.
One or maybe all of the 7
Sorry, Casey. I think same problem here. I'll have to move on. So the video is really good. Go onto YouTube, look Google for expeditions. It's a really powerful video to let you as a teacher understand how you're going to share this tool with your students. This is a very low estimate. They're looking for the VR market to be worth up to 30 billion by 2020. Currently it's about 3 billion. But some sources saying this could be even more than 100 billion in terms of industry. So, like I said, Malaysia is looking for this 2020 vision of being part and parcel of the developed world. It's already being out there. So there's a lot of big players that's coming on board. For the big players is Facebook, you've got YouTube like I mentioned, you've got Samsung with the headsets, and you've got people like HTC and even Jack Ma, Alibaba coming on board. So we can't ignore the fact that virtual reality is starting to become a very dominant sort of force. It is very new, obviously, in Malaysia, but it's something which is going to be happening across the next 12 months. Now, this is some things which I keep hearing a lot from traditional education, from schools, from even students. How do you get the kids to sort of get more motivated learning the traditional sort of way, be it from a textbook, be it from a learning, is things too linear? How do you make things more interesting, more fun? So we're not saying that traditional is not going to be the place to be, obviously, but we're looking at virtual reality to be an aid, a tool that allows us to get into endless possibilities of making virtual lessons, classes, and make it more fun, exciting, and engaging. So how do we bring the learner outside of the classroom? How do we expose students to global issues? So there was a case study from, I think it was the International News from New York, and they brought kids into Syria. Sorry, they brought the children into Syria into the 360 video camera, and what happened was they allowed yourself to be part of this Syria and the war-torn, so you're able to feel the empathy of being part of kids in Syria. VR is all about engaging the kids' imagination. It's about making everything come alive, and VR is expanding the students' horizons. So we looked in terms of the top intended use for VR, and education is one of the biggest forefronts. So the global market should be producing up to 105 billion by 2020 from almost 4.5 billion. That's a really big statistic. And the education sector is the fastest growing segment right now. So we've seen this chart probably before, but in terms of VR, is what creating sort of a dramatic presentation that simulates the real experience of doing the real thing. So I hope to capture all of this. I'm going to pass you to Georgia to bring you through the next slides.
Well, I actually find this a really interesting slide because after 2 weeks, we tend to remember 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we see and hear, 70% of what we actually say. So you imagine if you were actually in a group discussion or a talk, you would remember what you contributed to that talk because you were physically there. But then 90% of really what is retained is what we actually do. It's what we experience. And this is, I suppose, where virtual reality becomes so intrinsic, because you actually remember something very deeply because you feel like you were there. And Michael was talking about the Syrian documentary. It's called The Displaced, and it really is incredible. The New York Times actually developed this documentary called The Displaced about Syrian refugees from the POV of a 10-year-old girl. Because sad to say, 60 million people are displaced in this world today, more than at any other time in history. And 50% of the 60 million people displaced, refugees who don't have a home, 30 million of those on planet Earth are children. So they decided to do a documentary that actually won the Grand Prix, the most prestigious award out of Cannes, because of the empathy it brought up, to the point that the United Nations is now embracing VR, because the 10-year-old girl was standing in front of her house. She didn't have a house. It was just a pile of clothes behind her. And when the politicians, the mayor, and the UN congressmen were looking at this through the goggles, they actually did this. And they were reaching out because they actually wanted to touch the kids. It just felt so real. And so this is the thing about empathy. There were also amazing stories about people who were bipolar patients and they were depressed and paranoid. So they weren't able to actually physically leave the hospital room because they were scared of what was out there. So they actually filmed the corridor right outside their room, which led to a garden. And they did studies on this and said the people who put the goggles on actually started to feel they were walking through the corridor and they wanted to see the garden. And without any extra medication, they had the guts to finally walk out the door because they felt they'd already seen it. So it's really amazing, the applications of VR. Of course, you've got the entertainment, the game industry. Horror is huge. If you want to freak yourself out, I would ask you to watch the Conjuring trailer. It's so scary. If you turn off all the lights, you do it in your living room, you just go, because when you hear the door creaking in a movie from the back in VR, there's someone really coming from the back, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know? So, of course, horror, that's not what we're doing, but you never know. But for now, you know, we're excited about education because so many things you could do with it. Virtual reality brings a whole new dimension towards education, as you can imagine. Now, a virtual reality education platform is what we are excited to provide on demand. Now, this is not something that we can build overnight, but really the ultimate dream would be to actually provide an extra tool to extend learning to all of you teachers. So when you're in a lesson, if you had seen the Google video, what's very cool is when they say, okay, how long do you think the Great Wall of China is? So when you just see a photograph of the Great Wall of China, it's not the same thing as actually standing and looking down the length of it. So that's what VR can do. And you've probably experienced it in photographs, but it's even more immersive when it's in video, in moving form. So a virtual reality education platform is what we would love to provide knowledge on demand through immersive learning experiences. Well, should we skip this? I'll just try my luck. You never know, right? You never know. Okay. I'm just more of an Apple person. It's not responding. Do you use your hand or? Yeah, he's getting agitated with me, like, forget about it, just move on. So, okay, I will move on. You just have to trust me, it was a great video. We put a lot of work and a lot of love into it. Can you feel the love? You can? Okay, that's good enough. All right. Now, our mission, okay, is to leverage technology to provide a platform that creates scalable and creative. It's all very interesting to be creative, okay? Creative education content with increased outcomes and motivation. Now, how boring is it to learn about the digestive system? I had to even learn the digestive system when I was studying yoga in India. And, you know, we had language barriers. We had my Swami in the morning saying, we got this one excellent technique. And some of the students from Europe were like, what did he say? You know, so the amazing thing, right, about actually seeing something is not even dependent on words. But words are how we do consume a lot of information. So what you can do in VR, in a biology lesson is, you can actually do a point of view as if you're in the body. So we were actually trying to develop a video, and all this is a work in progress, but we've seen how some people have made even digestion and a biology lesson fun and interesting because of the voiceover. Oh, here comes a pizza, yum, right? And so it's amazing how they're bringing to life even the digestive system or the blood and understanding the heart and how it works with VO to just make your content and your lesson more fascinating. Because the more fascinating children are when they're learning from you, they don't even feel like they're learning. If you can make it fun, the messages stick and they remember the whole system. Okay, the product insights of the Learn Immersively platform is to fully immerse you in learning experiences on multi-topics, to engage realistic scenarios so people feel that they're a part of that real-life scenario. On-demand learning experiences, to collaborate with global education publishers on international educational topics. So we have different verticals. So you could have, like I was mentioning, the solar system where you are really there. You have the moon, volcanoes, so much stuff you can teach where it's no longer just a slide. It's not even a flat video, you are in it. So the potential categories could be science, geography, history. And EduVR could actually, at your fingertips, educate you on a multitude of topics. But what we would hope and envision is that for teachers, you feel like your lesson has become alive. It's just suddenly become so much richer, so much more interesting. You can even tell stories where you don't expect them to use the goggles from start to finish. It doesn't need to work that way. What we did, and we were the first people for the Singapore National Library to actually take storytelling in VR, is you tell a part of a story and you say, there was this girl who used to look out the window at the stars. And then when a person puts on the goggles, they see the stars. So they see what she sees from her window. And then a traditional storyteller can actually continue telling the story. And she used to live in this little wooden house on a hill, which had these goblins moving around. And suddenly the kids see the goblins moving around because they're actually following the story in VR. So it's actually using the beauty of a person saying, once upon a time, telling you that story, and in parts of the story, strategically choosing these accents where they can pick up the goggles and suddenly they are in the scene. They've gone into the book, like Jumanji style. So here's like an example of how you can look and you can see the controls. There's a lot you can do because you can control where you look, so you control your point of view. So this is one of the events that we did. It was space exploration in VR at the Singapore Space Convention, done very recently. And these are just some photographs we'd like to share of the events that we've been a part of. And of course, you know, VR workshops, it's not even just about passively viewing the content. The exciting thing is Lionel has been bringing children through workshops where they're creating their own VR. And after that, they can even share it because Google has a dedicated channel, which is your YouTube 360 channel. So the amazing thing is a kid can even share their work. And if you had a Google Cardboard at home, you can watch what your kid or your friends have produced. So we can actually do workshops in VR to teach you how you can make your own VR at a basic certain level. Of course, you know, if you wanted to do it in CG or animation, whole other story. But you know, dream big. All things are possible. But you can make your own VR, and especially in live action, right? That doesn't take a long time at all. So we have a whole load of activation and events. We've been speaking to brands who are excited to talk to us about workshops like Kidzania, and there is so many possibilities because there's so many topics. Education is endless. So storytelling in VR, this is some of the stuff that we did with the kids, and they loved it. And you find that they actually reach out. You just can't help yourself because you think you can touch everything you're seeing. And we were featured in the news for so many of the events we've done. I would tell you what this event was, about, but it's in Chinese, so yes. But it went well, that's what I heard. And that's really about it, So it's just an introduction to immersively, and that we would love for children all over the world ultimately to learn about this world in an immersive way so that they really feel that they can retain the information rather than just reading it or swiping past it. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Mr. Michael Lim and Ms. Jojo Strides for an interesting presentation. To show our appreciation to our speakers, we would like to invite Mr. Ramzan Haji Saman, the Division Head of Technical Services, to present a memento to Mr. Michael Lim on behalf of iMMERSiVELY. Please welcome. Thank you, Mr. Ramzan. Thank you, Ms. Jojo, and thank you, Mr. Michael Lim.